Hi, and welcome back to IPT2. So you probably have guessed by tonight's preview that the whole point of tonight's podcast is going to be going over the money that's involved with personal training. How do we think about that, and what are we going to do when it comes to setting prices? So it's a big topic. A lot of people, when they're getting started out, don't really understand how to set prices, find out prices, or just what they should be charging for what they're offering, because obviously that might be different across the board. So when we think about pricing structure, we often see advice getting given that you should charge what everybody else is charging, you should look at the national average in your area, and so on. And there can be instances where that's good advice, but there's also times when it would be better to follow your own path. So let's take a look at that and really dig into pricing structure. So the minimum price most gyms, corporate gyms, will let you charge will be £25. And the maximum, there may be a maximum in some gyms of £35, £45 per hour. And sometimes there will be no maximum. You can charge what you like. It's really up to yourself. And again, you will find people who are in independent gyms might have slightly lower prices because they have lower overheads, or maybe it's even a point of just really lowering the price to meet the market that they're in. In some areas that aren't so well off, you might find personal trainers have to drop their session prices to, and I've seen as low as the minimum average wage, which again doesn't bode well if you're looking to have a good career. You would have to put in a lot of hours per day, and it wouldn't be healthy for the personal trainer, and they probably wouldn't be giving good service having to do that amount of hours to earn even close to a good wage. But when we look at it in the other circumstance, we have to look at the people around us and what they can afford. Especially now we are in a crisis, a cost of living crisis, where the price of personal training is probably going to be one of the first things that goes for a lot of people. So instead of trying to price yourself out of the market by going way above and beyond everybody else, we should really be looking at what people can afford when we think about our services we're going to deliver. For instance, if you're looking at the minimum price, you want to maybe be just above minimum price so you can offer discounts to people who might be able to still afford personal training but just don't have the funds to pay the extra you're asking. So that might be students, that might be people who you want to give discounts to because it's your choice as a business. It could be that you look to give your services to anybody working in emergency services so they get a discount, or ex-army. Again, the demographics in your area or who you deal with will probably dictate what you can drop the price down to. Especially when we then start looking at online coaching, which we will talk about in a little bit. There has to be separate price points for that as well, looking at service. But I think it's very much key so that you don't offer a price point that's too little and really put a negative on the service you offer. You should always look at what kind of time you're actually having to put in for an individual client. So say your package comes with nutrition and giving nutritional advice and being able to contact you at any time of day, or being able to meet the demands of the client, as in changing session times on a whim. If these are things that have to be factored in, then there's going to be time involved in that. It's not just the 1 hour that you spend with the client. It's going to be all the other background stuff you do. And once you start to understand that somebody is employing you as a personal trainer because they want to get your knowledge, because they don't have it or they don't want to learn it, and they need your expertise because you're going to help them do something that they might not be able to do themselves, or most likely aren't able to do themselves. So there's that factor as well. There's the time factor of developing programs, developing nutrition, looking over stuff they send to you, dealing with anything that comes up. So your time on a client can very much add up easily. And then if you have 10 clients, 20 clients, 30 clients, we can see this adding up over time. And that's when we really need to look at, is £30 an hour, 25, 45, is it going to be enough to cover all the time you're putting in for that person? And a lot of personal trainers, when they get to that point where they can charge the money that the gym has said is a minimum or maximum or whatever they're going to charge, they sometimes go overboard. And you can see there's almost, it's not greed, but it's almost that you're in that position now to earn money, and it's a case of, wow, I'm making money now, I'm going to try and make as much as I can. And very quickly the focus of helping people can fall away. So again, on the flip side of all the time you put in, you do have the point that you want to help people. So what can we do to help them? Sometimes we have to reduce the price. Sometimes we have to look at our price and increase it. So what are those times? So when you are a busy personal trainer and you've got to the point where you now cannot take any more clients on, maybe you can't even take on online clients because you're just that busy. If you've got good time management, you may be able to do the hybrid method of having online clients and in-person clients. But for most starting out, you're going to have just your in-person clients. So if the gym is £25 per hour, I would always recommend going in a little bit above that at maybe £30 an hour. And that just allows you to then be able to discount. But the caveat to that is that if your gym has a lot of people who cannot afford personal training, then you may have to look at other things, like maybe 30-minute personal training sessions, like selling personal training packages, like making sure that you can actually meet the customer and help them where their pain points are. Maybe you can design ebooks that you can sell that are cheaper, and then you can have some sort of online service that comes off the back of that. Again, very much looking at the client and what they need and how you can help, and then designing the price point around that. So a half-hour session might be £15 per hour, or half hour even, and that means that you can still have 2 half-hour sessions back to back and make your £30 per hour. It may involve a little bit more work, so you may even want to make that £17. But again, you'll have to look at the people in your area and what they can afford and what would be useful to them. Would half an hour be a useful service? If they came in, did their warm-up, maybe you started them off on the first exercise, taking them through and then left them with a couple of easier exercises to complete at the end and their cool down? Would that make sense for that person? Again, we want to offer a bespoke service, so for that, is £17 going to be worth that to the client? I would very much say so. It's going to be very helpful to them and still give them accountability and still going to give them help and support. And then you can decide what extras that you add on to give value. Now, once you've got yourself busy, as I said, and you can't take on any more clients, that's when you could look to maybe doing courses that would upskill yourself. And then that gives you a very easy conversation to have with clients that you're increasing your prices. And again, if you increase your prices for 10 clients and you're increasing the price by £2.50, then for those 10 clients, you make an extra £25. So that's per hour. So don't get greedy with putting price points up by £5 and £10. Do small increments. But also that easier conversation comes because when you notify clients that the price is going up, then you can also explain to the clients that it is because you've had to go and spend money to upskill yourself to give them a better service, and you can then include that service into what you offer. So say you did pre and postnatal training and you predominantly work with females, then you can assert that you are now more skillful in training females, and if anybody was to get pregnant, they could then come to you and be trained by you. So again, that offsets the price that you've had to pay for your training as well in the future, because you'll be gaining more money. And when you get to that point where you are seen as the expert and you can continue on, then obviously it's a very good thing to do is increase your price as people's wages increase each year. So if you think about it, as a personal trainer, for maybe the past decade, personal training prices haven't really went up. They've stayed pretty much the same across the board, and that goes across the country. So to put it into perspective, personal training prices roughly in the UK have been anywhere between 25 to 35 from anywhere outside of Aberdeen and London. And for Aberdeen and London, it's been 35 to £45 per hour. So again, it's not really increased much. There are some personal trainers out there that charge more, but it's up to yourself, again, how we price this, and looking at the price structure of the people around you and what they can afford is very much what we would recommend as well. So, if everybody else is getting a wage rise and personal trainers haven't been getting a wage rise, that's mainly because we have not put in the actual thought process of our wages increasing with people's wages, or we just don't really value the service that we're giving back to our clients. Or it could be the other way, that they don't value our service as much. And it can be very life-changing, the services that personal trainers offer. So I would be of mind that when you're speaking to somebody and you are explaining your prices, that you have things in mind that will be suitable to them. If you offer something that's way too expensive, then you're probably not going to get many people buying that product. If you then offer something at a medium price, you may get some people buying that, and then most people will go for the low price option. And that's if you show people three options. And this is a little bit of marketing, a little bit of strategy, but if you put a bunch of prices in front of people, naturally they're going to go for the least expensive. That's just human nature. That's what we do. If we see a bunch of prices in front of us, we go for the least expensive, unless we're looking for something specific. Now, I don't recommend that you have a price sheet, and more that you understand your client. How many times has somebody who is been teaching you said that you have to tell the client your price at the end of a consultation? And that's usually what the thought process is. But have you ever thought about asking the client how much they have to invest in their training? Because that can be a game changer. Because if the client doesn't know, then we can say, well, this is our price, and would you be able to meet that? And if not, then we should have obviously something else ready for them to purchase. But if we ask the client how much they've got to invest in themselves, we find out very quickly how much they think our service is worth. And we also find out what they're willing to spend on personal training. So instead of us telling them this is our price, could we not ask the client how much they want to invest in themselves? And that's the change that happened when we went to online services. Because no longer were we in person, no longer were we visible a lot of the time to the person. We were just somebody on the end of a computer. And for a lot of people, especially when we look at the online services of the biggest providers out there, who have in the millions of people that they've worked with, they are just a person on the other end of a computer who's getting them results. Now, not everybody will get results that way. Some people need that actual person to be there, or need to speak to that person over the computer, be it by Zoom or by video chat. And again, you'll be able to think about your services. What do you offer? What kind of value is going to go into your product? And then come up with a price point. But again, you should have different price points. Not everybody is going to afford the same as everybody else. And what are you willing to take off of your product to drop down to that person's affordability? So if your main product is, let's just pull out £200, and they get a month's worth of training for that £200, what are they getting? Are they getting one-to-one service? Is it online? When can they contact you? Do they get a program? Do they get nutrition looked at? And then what if they can't afford £200? What if they can only afford £100 of investment per month? Would you turn that away, or would you say that, okay, you can only contact us within office hours, or only between the hours of 12 and 8 at night? Or maybe you don't get a nutrition call. Instead, we just give you some advice as you need it. There's lots of things you can change about your product that will then take away value and then can justify downgrading to what the person can afford. Maybe the person can only afford £100 and all that gets them is a program and advice. But if that's your lowest price point, that's what you need to think about. What is going to be the lowest price I go down to, and what does that get the client? Does that still solve problems for the client? Does that still help the client? Am I still going to see people purchasing that? Especially when you're dealing with a larger demographic. Because if you're a weight loss coach, for instance, then that's great. But your demographic is going to be men and women. It's going to be multiple ages. It's going to be multiple backgrounds. It's going to be multiple different things that they need help with. It could be a little bit of psychological help. It could be a little bit of training. It could be a little bit of mental health. There could be a lot of factors that you have to deal with. So then what does your product do to help all that? And then what are you going to take off as they don't need it so you can meet all the different demographics price points? It's great to want to help people, but if we just go in with that's what our hourly rate is and that's what you need to pay, and they can't pay it, then you can't help the person. So we have to very much structure this in a way that's going to be helpful. And again, putting out that you do things at a certain price isn't going to be helpful to the client. It's not going to be attractive either. I would never advise telling somebody how much you are per hour, because that hourly rate, as we discussed very early on in this podcast, is very much dependent on all the other hours you put into in the background. So your hourly rate actually is probably going to be down at £9 an hour, maybe even less, depending on how many hours you put in. Because each client might take you 10 hours to get set up. And then after that first month, and you're redoing the programming, or whenever you redo your programming, it's going to take you more time. And it might take less time than before, but it still takes time. You still have to put that aside. It's still part of your day that you're giving up. It's still something you should be getting paid for. So your hourly rate actually is taken down very much by all the other things you have to do outside of a personal training session. And online training highlights that very well, because if you spend 10 hours getting a client set up with nutrition and so on, and exercise and whatever else they need, then by the time you come to actually delivering that service, you might be getting paid less than minimum wage. But clients or prospectus clients, they don't see that. All they see is the price that they pay. So that's why we have to help them understand that there's a lot more going on than just a 2-minute program that we design, or a cookie cutter program that we've designed and then given to everybody. There's more to it than that. And that's where your consultation comes in. That's where speaking to a person comes in. You don't want to just sell somebody in a conversation on Facebook. You want to have a face-to-face call with somebody, be it over the telephone, over Zoom, whatever means you're going to use. In person in the gym is ideal. Or even in a coffee shop, meeting up for a coffee, somewhere that makes the client feel at ease, so they can open up and tell you the information you need to know to be able to help them. So you could look at the price per hour and then say to the client, well, do you know what? I'm only £9 per hour, but I'm going to have to put 4 hours of service into what I'm doing for you. So actually, you're going to be paying £38 per session with all the other stuff I do with you in the background. So then your price point is going to be somewhere in that £200 range, or close to it. And again, it all depends. I think we spoke a little bit before as well about monthly packaging, and if I haven't spoke about it here, we probably spoke about it in the webinar last week that went very well. And when we move to a monthly package, some months have 5 weeks, some months have 4 weeks. So again, what's going to happen to that client if they're on a monthly membership and it's a 5-week month? Do you give them a fifth session, or do you give them a week off? What are you going to do? What happens when you take your 4 weeks off per year? Does the client still pay their monthly subscription? And if they're getting 5 sessions some months, then I would suggest that maybe keeping on that little bit of a monthly subscription would be a good thing. Whereas if you're paying per the session, you're going to run out of sessions sometimes in the middle of a month or before the end of a month. So is that going to be good for the client? Does that mean you have to go looking for another client? It's all very much up in the air until you have your business running the way you want it to run, because then you will be earning the kind of money you want to earn. You know, when we look at people paying for personal training, usually they will pay up front for the training. Usually they're quite happy to pay for it up front, and that's why monthly servicing is a good thing. But if that doesn't suit your business, then it doesn't suit your business. You do it your way. But again, going back to the kind of crux of what this podcast is about, it's about how do you price things. So you have to delve into all these aspects before coming up with a definitive price that you feel your service is worth. Now, like I've explained, there is multiple hours involved in a 1 hour personal training session. There is multiple hours that goes into devising things for clients. There may be multiple hours that goes into all the extras that you have to do, finding out information, doing research, and so on for the client. So do not underestimate the worth of your services, but at the same time, don't overestimate how much a client can pay. Some clients will not be able to pay the money that you're asking, so don't ask for it. Ask for something in the range. Ask them what they can afford to actually put into themselves, and then you might see yourself becoming a more successful trainer. And that doesn't mean that you should go under the minimum that your gym says, but it does mean that you could offer that half-hour session, or you could offer a training package where you take them for a training session, just one training session, but show them lots of aspects that's going to help them. So that way they're only paying for one training session in that month and a little bit of accountability, and maybe that comes in at £50. So you've got one session that week, and you can keep that free for the next person. Again, you'll be able to time manage yourself with these things to make sure that you maximize your profits, but also maximize your clientele and make sure that you can have the right people working within your actual timetable of clients. There's so many different avenues you can go down, especially now with hybrid training, online training, in-person training, remote training, all sorts of other things that you can actually look into as a personal trainer. So look into them, decide what you want to offer, come up with a price point that isn't trying to compete with the other trainers, because that's not what it's about. You're not trying to undercut the personal trainers, but you're also not trying to compete with them. If you feel your service is superior and it's better and your price point is higher and you can justify it and you get the clients, then you are correct. But if your price point is too high and you're not getting clients because they can't afford you, you do need to take a look at that. But don't just look at the price, look at the offerings. Look at what you can take away from a package to make it more affordable for the person, as I've said previously. There's a lot to unpack when it comes to your pricing structure, and I really hope that this podcast helps with that. But it is a conversation to be had, and maybe not a conversation to just have yourself. So if you do need any support, we are going to be running a business course very soon on the 9th and 10th of September. But we also are available just for a chat. If you want to drop us a message at any point, please go see our Instagram or Facebook or any of the social medias. We're on them all. And then just drop us a message. We're happy to chat things through and make sure that you get the success that you deserve. And that might be looking at your price structure, or it might be looking at other things. But that's a conversation that sometimes, if you have it just with yourself, you might draw the wrong comparisons, not see things from the right perspective, and sometimes get yourself hung up on the actual money itself, because money is king or queen. So it's been delightful to ramble on as always. I will leave it there for this week, and as always, if there is any topics that you want us to cover in the future, please just let us know and we'd be happy to cover them off. Till next time, take it easy.